Okay, so our goal is to kill the evil eye in Pandemonium as fast as possible. To do that, we've got to understand where our damage is coming from. I'm going to use a Cassiatris with Gilgamesh. I've got my custom skills set to be mostly increasing light. I've got improved criticals, the painful break card, Ravage, and skilled duelist on here as well. They add a little bit of damage for me. So over on Ultima, most players know there's a lot of good information on Mobius on the Ultima site. One of the really fun things is the damage calculator. So I took the time, I put all my numbers in here for Gilgamesh. So my magic number is coming from my magic right on the front page here, and so is my attack, because like Godot, Gilgamesh uses another attribute to go with the calculation. It's half of that attack calculation. And then all of these other numbers, attribute reinforcement and so on, are all coming from my auto abilities. Of course, the magic up is in the magic already. Enhanced light is 175. Painful break is 278. Exploit weakness is 100. Improve criticals is 180. Ability chain, which is further up, is also at 150. Is at 150. And I've got Ravage at 5%. I've got Skill Duelist at 5%. So all that stuff shows up here. Now, the conditions I'm going to have in my battle. I'm going to break it as often as possible. I'm using the weakness attribute. Criticals, ability chain, same attribute chain. I only have Faith level 1. I may try to pull for that tonight. I've got Brave, which actually does impact the attack, which makes it a little bit more powerful yet. I've got an Enhance Elements +2 on my Light Force card, because there's 2 of them here. I've got Trans 2 after Titus uses his limit. I'll have All Attribute Reinforcement 2 from the Warrior of Light card. I've got D-Barrier 2. For my first calculation, I'm going to assume that my deadly gauge is none, because Gilgamesh uses Martial Flow, and I usually break using a limit on this. So let's see what happens with this. I run the calculation, and I get back 121 million. Now, if I don't have my ability chain on because I use this right after a limit, I run this simulation again, it gives me back 87 million. Okay, so if my deadly gauge is full, and I run this without attribute chain, I get back 98 million. And if I've got my best case scenario where I'm running ability chain and I'm running deadly gauge, everything, then I get back 133. And since Gilgamesh hits 7 times, I'm going to be maxing out damage almost all the time. Now, for me, it's not enough to just see these damage calculations. I have to actually see where they're coming from. So I took the time to try to put together all of the information in a form that would make sense to me. I like numbers. This probably isn't helpful for others. But down here on my Cassiatris, I've got her magic, I've got her back, I've got her attribute strengthening, and then I'm looking at a tune chain. I put down -50 there because I'm assuming the martial gauge isn't up. Then I've got 180 on critical up, 278 on my breakup, all the same numbers that I had before. I've got level 1 Faith, I've got level 1 back Brave, which actually applies for this card. I've got level 2 Trance, level 2 D-Barrier, level 2 Enhanced Elements, level 2 Enhance All Elements. I don't have Berserk, and I don't have Weaken Up. I don't really need those two for this particular battle. So what's going on here with these calculations? The best way to think about damage in Mobius Final Fantasy is it's a system of multipliers. The first multiplier is just taking the total magic and it's multiplying it by the power on the card, but I'm taking half of what's on the back job, so since that's affected by Brave, I had to put that into the calculation to get out what is my base damage just based on my magic. Attribute chain is the thing that has confused me about this game for the longest time. Martial Flow adds to the attribute gauge, so since I don't have Martial Flow right away, I put a -50 over here just for cheating so that I didn't have to redo my whole spreadsheet to add one special condition. It also includes Enhanced Elements and Enhance All Elements, and of course the basic modifier on the amount of light strength that I have. So in the best case scenario, that multiplier is 3.6. Critical damage starts at a 50% increase and then adds the critical increase from Gilgamesh's cards, because if you have ignore some of the defense, it adds at least 30% is my understanding based on the Ultima site. The break damage starts at doubling the damage and then it adds the breakup, and it also adds anything that comes from the card. So if you're using Zeza, that gives you a huge modifier, and the break doesn't really do you a lot of good to be using a weapon or a job that has a lot of additional break power, because all these things just get added to the same multiplier. Weakness on a break starts with a base value of 2. I have no idea what the weaken modifier is. I'm just going to guess it's 50% based on weaken level 1. And then you also have your weakness damage increase on here, and with my Cassiatris, that's a base of 100. When you have a weakness element but you haven't broken yet, the default increase is only 30% instead of 100. Skilled Duelist is a separate multiplier, which is why it's powerful. Same thing with Ravage. It's a separate modifier except for if you're using the Ultima card, which comes in with one additional one there already. And then this last modifier is a combination of all my buffs and debuffs. So, I mean, this stands for Brave, Faith, Debarrier, and Other. So I take the fact that I have level 1 Faith, which is a 30% modifier. Well, I mean, I can go back and check. It's got all that information down further here. Faith is basically a 50% modifier for starters. And then Trance 2 is just a 45% modifier for starters. And then finally, Debarrier 2 is a 1.75 times damage on the modifier. You take all those numbers and you multiply them together, and you get back 3.81. And then I've got my calculations down here for if I don't have Martial Flow, if I don't have Martial Flow but I do have Ability Chain, and if I have full Martial Flow and the full Ability Chain, and I can go back to the official Ultima site and I can actually check and see that I got 87, 186, 86, 98 is the other one I'm interested in. Oh, it's at 121 right now because I still have the attribute on. That's interesting. So if I take this off and take this off, that's going to give me back the damage at the 98 million level, and then of course the best computation is everything going together. But I mean, maybe that's boring for most people. Let's run through and do the 2-turn Big Eye kill. Let's get this right this time. So I need to get Lights of Hope. That will enable me to get an ultimate gauge charge. So the way that I do this... Oh, before I get started on this, Season 2 damage is cut by 10, so when it says over here 87 million damage, that's saying that the approximate estimate is 8.7 million, but can range anywhere from 7.8 to 9.5, because we have to divide the damage by 10. Okay, so Gilgamesh allows me to hit the gauge, and then a limit will allow me to break. I want Crystal's Blessing, I want Catastrophe, and I want Limitless Potential. So while I don't have same attribute chain right now, my martial gauge is pretty full. Still, oh, I was able to do max damage. I guess I got lucky that time. So now I got however many actions it gives me until I stop getting Prismatic Return, which apparently is going to be right there. Just in time to be able to break him again with another quicken. And now my martial gauge is down pretty far, so I should be doing closer to the 8.7 million damage than 9 million damage. And actually I was closer to about 8.5, but I mean the bandwidth is 7.8 up to 9.5, so falling closer to 8 million really isn't that big of a surprise. Sometimes I hit him hard, sometimes I don't. It's a pretty big margin of error.
Get a load of this!
Alright, well it looks like we got enough Prismatic Return this time, so I won't have to, hopefully, do this one last time yet. Alright. Oh, and then when I broke him by hand, my martial gauge was pretty full, so I had that extra bonus damage, so made it a little bit easier to do damage to him.
Get him! Dead meat!
We are one short. Can you break him without having done any damage to the gauge, because otherwise I'm not going to make it again. I would hate to miss out on the 2-turn kill yet again. So with all these quickens that I'm done, there's one of two possible outcomes here. Either I'm going to kill him, which is the preferred outcome, or I'm going to get Mobius zone by the end of turn 2. Oh, I got him killed right there. How convenient is that? So that's the 2-turn evil eye kill, which is basically just enabled by being able to do as much damage as I did and understanding how the damage formula works. So that is what I've been up to on this game.